Hello again and welcome to another episode of I Want to Talk About This Album, and today I'm going to talk about Jimi Hendrix, or maybe the Jimi Hendrix experience. To me, it's just Jimi Hendrix. And you know, as I organize my digital music, like something like Bruce Springsteen, I just put him as, I don't listen to Spotify. That's not bragging or this or elitist or anything. I just don't listen to Spotify. I download my music the old-fashioned way. And I just put Bruce Springsteen. I'll put Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. I put Neil Young. I don't put Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And Jimi Hendrix, for me, is just Jimi Hendrix, although it is officially, as you can see, the Jimi Hendrix experience. And the reason I'm talking about this one today, sometimes I talk about or I mention why or what motivates me to talk about a certain record. I did the Rolling Stones' Let It Bleed a couple of episodes ago, and that kind of got me, thinking about this, 60s music and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of continue that, being that I was in the mood for this kind of 60s stuff, and I'm trying to capture the psychedelic feel as much as I can for myself, not for you. So I'm smoking. This is what I've got here. Look at this, man. Trippy. I don't smoke weed. I've never smoked weed, but I do like to burn incense, actually fairly regularly, and I've got a big fatty going. I don't know if the term fatty can apply to incense, but it is a big fat stick of incense that's burning here. So if you see some smoke coming in the camera, that's what it's coming from. So Jimi Hendrix, add him to the list of, I've talked about this many times, including with the Rolling Stones the other day, which is also part of the reason for the motivation. Rolling Stones, Bon Scott era AC/DC. God, who else has there been that I hated and then grew to love? Who else was there? There were a lot. There's at least two more that I'm going to talk about that I haven't talked about yet, and I'm missing a couple of obvious ones. Remind me, if anybody's paying attention, who else did I used to hate? Especially these older bands, and Led Zeppelin, yeah, maybe they're the best example. Even kind of the Beatles. So Jimi Hendrix, and I think the reason I didn't like a lot of that kind of music, that the classic rock, was, this was when I was a teenager. I started, hearing this music when I was even younger than that, I guess 12, 13 years old. And to me, classic rock, I talked about this before also with the Rolling Stones and AC/DC, Bon Scott. It was always the older guys, in high school that listened to this kind of music. And also anything that was on classic rock, to me, especially as when I was 14, 15, 16, really, really full on into metal. This stuff was just so outdated to me. This was stuff I had no interest in listening to. I just wanted to listen to, at that point, to Metallica and Slayer and I guess Iron Maiden and Motley Crue and Rat and things like that. I didn't want to listen to shit from 1963 or whatever these albums. This one came out in 1967. Let It Bleed was around the same time, I think 68 or 69 maybe. And so I just had a real bad attitude towards that. I felt like it was being foisted upon me, and I just didn't like this. I felt like I was expected to like it. And there's a band that I'm going to talk about. I got one of their records right here. Not only have I not talked about this band yet, I don't think I've ever even referenced them in any way at all in any of these episodes. Who is it? Can you guess who it is? And they kind of reminded me, maybe a better example of that than anybody, this band that I'll talk about at some point, for kind of different reasons. You probably don't understand, but that's okay. It's not that you're dumb, you can't understand. It's because I didn't explain that properly. Not to denigrate anybody. Oh, this is going really bad already. So Jimi Hendrix, my history with him, because this is the first time I've talked about him. I only saw him live twice. That was all. Only a couple times I saw him live. And what is this guy doing with my dog outside? This idiot. No, I don't have really any history with Jimi Hendrix. The only money I've ever spent on Jimi Hendrix was I bought his The Greatest Hits CD that came out late 90s, early 2000s, maybe something like that. And it had a lot of songs from this album on it. And that's about it. I like the Rolling Stones. I mentioned that I don't think I know one single Rolling Stone song's lyrics all the way through. I know some choruses, of course. and I know some lines here and there, and I know some songs musically very well, but lyrically, nah. And same with Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if there is one, and it's on this album that I do know quite cold. Stone Cold, not the song Stone Free, but I do know one song in this very well. It's maybe not the one you're thinking of. Is that it for Jimi Hendrix? Now, to get to the album, especially, I'd never heard this album again, so I do have some notes here until I listened to it the other day, and then again today, and took some notes. And something that is really notable about this album and all albums of this era: drums, man. The drum sounds in the 60s and especially 70s. I know this is 60s. Man, the drums sounded fucking great. I don't know what happened after that. But drums, maybe especially through the 80s, didn't sound so good. Judas Priest, I think, never had good sounding drums, an exception because they were, had a lot of music in the 70s. But I really love the drum sound on this album. And speaking of Jimi Hendrix as an artist or a guitarist, again, when I was a teenager and everybody was always saying he was the greatest guitarist ever, him and Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, and I thought, fuck all those guys, man. It's not those guys. It's Eddie Van Halen and Ace Frehley and Randy Rhoads and I don't know, maybe a little bit later, George Lynch and guys like that. I thought these guys, who cares about these guys? But nah, Jimi Hendrix, I've come around and he is great. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not one to judge anybody's talent, and I'm not saying he's more talented or less talented, but I just think I can appreciate now much more than I was when I was a teenager how creative he was. He played some really cool stuff for 1967, 68, 69, late 60s. When I was a kid in the early 80s, I didn't, have any realization for that, or didn't respect that, or didn't even see that. But listening to him now, yeah, Jimi Hendrix, pretty fucking good guy, good guitarist. So I'll get to this now, and you can see it's a little bit bent. I don't know if the camera can pick it up. I think this one was shrink wrapped so tight that it kind of bent the record sleeve. So here it is. It's got a hype sticker here, and it says, I need good light here, the authorized Hendrix Family Edition. I guess his estate maybe handles all this. All analog mastering from the original 2-track master tapes by George Marino. Complete original artwork. That's good. Manufactured by Quality Record Pressings. All original artwork. I guess that means there's something inside. Lyrics. I don't know if bands put lyrics inside the records in the 60s, but I guess there's something interesting inside. Hopefully not just that dreaded plain black or white sleeve or the plastic, something like that. And I don't know what to expect because I've never bought a Jimi Hendrix album before other than the greatest hits. And something interesting about the back of this record, and I think there were some Beatles records that were like this too, or maybe records in the 60s. The Beach Boys, I think, they're almost like press releases. In addition to the track listing, it says, "Are you experienced? The one everyone's been talking about!" Exclamation point. The excitement of the Jimi Hendrix experience. And it's got the track listing. And then, yeah, it's like they're hyping him up. Be forewarned, I'll read this. Fast forward about maybe 48 seconds. Be forewarned. Used to be an experience meant making you a bit older. This one makes you wider. Not wiser, wider. With the assistance of Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on guitar. I guess that should be bass, right? Wasn't Noel Redding the bass player? Jimi Hendrix breaks the world into interesting fragments, then reassembles it. This is kind of strange. You hear with new ears after being experienced, capital E. Those who've only seen him perform know only part of this experience. They rave about a young man who plays the guitar in more positions than anybody before him. Now this debut album, remember this was piping him for his debut. Now this debut album will put the heads of Hendrix's listeners into some novel positions. Be forewarned. All right. So there it is. I'll open it up and go through it track by track. I can see that there is something inside. All right. There it is. And there it is. And let me see the sleeve and the record. No, it's nothing. Man, come on. This is, I don't know what, am I missing something? No, really nothing. I don't know why the hype sticker says original artwork. Are they just talking about this? Anyway, so, yeah, that's it. Come on. And you can see the record. I'll put this back inside. So now, as I said, I've never listened to this album completely. There are 5 or 6 or 7 songs that I am familiar with, probably in some cases quite familiar with, but the other ones I'd never heard before until the other day. But I wrote notes anyway, just to keep me on track. So the first one is, of course, Purple Haze. This was one of my nightmare songs when I was a teenager. God, I hated this song. It was like I remember my mother used to make stew. Does anybody know what stew is? When I was a kid and a teenager, usually on Sundays my mother made stew, and both my brother and I hated stew. It was like these big chunks of meat, and my mother always overcooked the meat, mixed with like potatoes and carrots and roasted onions in a casserole dish, and she put it in the oven all day, I think, and we had to eat that, and the meat was it took you 8 minutes to chew a piece of meat. The potatoes were dry. It had kind of not a gravy on it, but like a sauce. I hated stew. When my mother said we're having stew for dinner, I felt ill, I think. And that was kind of how I felt about Purple Haze. It's just, or it was, I thought at the time, just like, oh, I can't stand this song. I don't want to hear this song again. And now I like it. Of course, I like it a lot. I still don't know the lyrics. Purple Haze, all in my brain. Whatever it is, that girl put a spell on me. Excuse me while I kiss this guy. Of course, I know that, but I still don't know the lyrics, despite having heard it thousands. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Thousands of times. I don't know. Although very, very, very few of those have been by my choice. It used to be on the radio, and you couldn't get away from Purple Haze. But I do like Purple Haze now. I have a much greater appreciation, even love for a lot of this music that I've mentioned in this video and in past episodes. Next is Manic Depression. I think this one I knew from, I'm sure I heard this one prior to what I'm about to say, but King's X, and I love King's X, and I haven't talked about them, and I don't have any King's X records. I would love to talk about King's X. I have some CDs. They did a cover of Manic Depression on, I think it was on Dogman, 1994. I'm not sure if I think I had heard it before that, but it was King's X version that really got me into Manic Depression. And something that I had never noticed until I listened to it today, I did Cadaver in, I think it was the last episode, and there's a song I did Abracadaver, there's a song on their first album, their self-titled album called, I did that record, I think around a year ago, called Forgotten Past. And I had never, and I've heard Forgotten Past for 10 years, and I've heard Manic Depression for 40 years, and never noticed it until today that I think Forgotten Past clearly lifts from Manic Depression. Really, I don't know if it's intentional, but probably not. But it's definitely there. Some Manic Depression in Forgotten Past by Cadaver, and I love that song. Manic Depression is a fantastic song. Next is Hey Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going down to shoot my old lady. I caught her messing around, and I like this song. I've always liked this song, and I'm slow, and I only put it together when I was listening to this today. I thought this one, Hey Joey, where are you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going down to shoot my old lady. She's been messing around. And Neil Young, Down by the River, I shot my baby. He's talking about his baby, his woman, not his young infant. And Leonard Skinner, Cheating Woman. What's the lyric in Cheating Woman? You love every man with pants on. I'm going to grab my pistol. And I can't remember what they say in Cheating Woman. But that's like a trilogy of very, very violent songs. People were very angry with their women in the late 60s and into the 70s. Very violent people. They should be locked up, I think. And I really like Hey Joe too. Great song. Next is Lover Confusion. I'd never heard this one before. This was new to me just the other day and today. It's kind of a loud, it's a rocker, it's got great Jimi Hendrix guitar in it. I like that song. Next is May This Be Love, not to be confused with So This Is Love from the Van Halen Fair Warning album, which is my favorite Van Halen album. But May This Be Love, this is kind of a nice, quiet / psychedelic song. And I like it. Not too much to say about it. I've only heard it twice in my life, but I like it. Another one that I hadn't heard before until these last few days, I Don't Live Today. This is another, really psychedelic song. And this one has a couple of fake endings. And again, I don't have too much to say about it, but it's okay. Wind Cries Mary. This is one I did know. I think it was on the Greatest Hits thing. And maybe it was a radio song today. Why did I say today? Because I was looking at this and I was looking at I Don't Live Today. Wind Cries Mary. This is one, it's not a favorite, but the guitar is great. When I was listening to that, this is why people like Jimi Hendrix and probably also Little Wing as well. Next is Fire. This is the one that I know off what's the expression I'm looking for? I don't know, I can't remember, but what's wrong with me? More than usual today. Fire is, it's probably my favorite Jimi Hendrix song. I love it. I love the energy of it. I probably knew this one just like the cover of the King's Exit of Manic Depression. I probably heard this originally. Red Hot Chili Peppers did a cover of Fire on Mother's Milk, and I love Mother's Milk. That was the first, that was the first Red Hot Chili Peppers album I ever bought in 1988 or 89, I think. And I would even say loved the Red Hot Chili Peppers version. And then when I heard the Jimi Hendrix version, I think it was quite some time later, at least that I really got into it. Maybe not the first time I heard it. I think I liked it even more, which is kind of unusual because even though Jimi Hendrix's version obviously came first and Chili Peppers was a cover, for me, Chili Peppers was the first one I heard and I loved it. So typically it's harder to love something, a different version if you've heard it second. You know what I mean? But I think I like Jimi Hendrix's version better. And I sang this song at my sister's birthday party. I don't know, maybe it was her 40th birthday party or something. And her husband, my brother-in-law, hired a band to come and play in their backyard. It was just like a rock band. And they played Fire, and I got up there and I sang with them because that was the only song, I guess, that I knew that they were playing. And man, I love Fire. It's a great, great song. It's just fast and up-tempo. It's got great, great energy. I love all the ad-libs, roll over and like Jimmy take over and, all those things that he says in between the verses or the choruses. Fire, fantastic song. Love it. My favorite Jimi Hendrix song. Next is Third Stone from the Sun. This is another one. This is the last one that I hadn't heard. There's three more. This is the last song I hadn't heard. And I couldn't believe how much, I don't know if I've cited this before, but there's a band called I Mother Earth. I know Dallas knows I Mother Earth, and if you're a Canadian and you like rock music, you definitely know I Mother Earth. You might even be a fan. If you're American or Mexican, you probably don't know I Mother Earth, but they're, for me, maybe my favorite or second favorite Canadian band. They produced my favorite Canadian band, my favorite album by any Canadian band ever, which was Steiner and Fish, their second album. But on their first album, which was called Dig, they had a song called So Gently We Go. And so I consider So Gently We Go, it's hard to say this, but one of my favorite songs ever. I always think of that and Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner by Iron Maiden as those are the two greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. And I couldn't believe when I listened to this today, instantly I heard, man, they totally, I guess it was intentional in a good way, lifted or stole a lot of So Gently We Go from Jimi Hendrix, Third Stone from the Sun, which makes me like the song a lot. It's not really spoken word. It's kind of spoken word, but the vocals are kind of buried in the background. You almost can't even hear them. And kind of spoken word. Crazy song, kind of a wild psychedelic song. And I've always thought that So Gently We Go, it does have a psychedelic feel to it. And you know what I just realized too? Another connection in yeah, I'm just putting this together. In So Gently We Go, there's a line that says, "We're as bold as love," and that's a Jimi Hendrix. I think it was the second one, "Acts as Bold as Love." Yeah, maybe that was a little nod as a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. But that's a good one too. I'm gonna have to listen to that one more. Two more. Next is Foxy Lady. Used to hate it, love it now. It was one that it was on the radio all the time, and again, I just was tired of it. But I have a newfound appreciation for it. And the last song, I'll repeat that again, what I just said about Foxy Lady for the last song, Are You Experienced? Which as a song has an exclamation point, and as an album, very interesting, isn't it, that it has no exclamation point. Yeah, Are You Experienced is an amazing song. I didn't appreciate it for years and years. I would even say decades. Really, really, really good song. One of my top, and I'm not a big Jimi Hendrix fan. I don't know too many of his songs, but it could even be my second favorite. I really like Are You Experienced, the song. So that is it. And look at that. What a psychedelic wonder that is. Everything about it, the way they're dressed, the purple and yellow, all the flowers on them, or I guess Jimi Hendrix is wearing, it's like a boa, I guess. Yeah, very good album, and this is obviously considered one of the greatest albums ever, of the 60s for sure, but I think ever. This is a real classic album, and I do like it. I'm glad that it only took me 55 years to get around to it, but I am happy about it, and I'm glad that I can kind of go back and listen to some of this old music that I turned my nose up at for decades, for most of my life. And there it is, Jimi Hendrix, or if you prefer, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are You Experienced?